Hey guys, how's it going? This is Lucas Sullivan with GamesRadar.com, and joining me is
Tim Alvis from Dark Vale Games.
And we are here to check out Forge, which is a sort of shooter MMO hybrid. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the hybridization is a little bit different than I think people have seen when they think of MMO FPS. They usually think like large on the MMO part and the FPS light. And we're actually the reverse. We haven't really gone in and tried to build this large persistent universe to start with. Instead, we've taken the gameplay from MMO combat and made it work in a first-person shell.
Cool. So this is like straight up PvP.
This is straight up PvP, straight up multiplayer. Like it feels a little bit like a shooter, and it feels a little bit like an MMO. Yeah, so right now in this build, we haven't included audio just because we're waiting for some final sounds to come in before we let the audio be heard by the public.
Very cool. So right now we're looking at the classes. What do we have to pick from here?
So at launch we're going to have 5 classes. They are the Assassin, which is kind of a hard-hitting melee class that has abilities that are designed more to kind of frustrate your team, the enemy team's plans. So you have a few damage attacks, but a large number of your attacks are things that either disorient the enemy, you can pull the enemy away from their allies, so you can use Shadow Shift and actually force them to go stealth as well, which basically creates for 5 seconds a map where only the two of you exist.
Awesome.
You can use Smoke Cloud, which divides the map space up so that nobody can target in, either to heal or damage, and that includes your team as well. But yeah, they're sort of a trickster class more than like a really high damage burst class. We have the Pathfinder, and the Pathfinder is sort of a medium-ranged kiting class, so they're able to get into the middle of combat and make their way back out and keep people at range. So they're meant to be able to mix it up. They don't have to always stay off at the edges. We also have the Pyromancer, and the Pyromancer is much more your traditional sort of stays at ranged, fire-using magic class.
Glass cannon, if you will?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, you definitely do not want to be caught in the middle of a melee with this class. You have a few escape abilities, to get out whenever you're caught, but yeah, for the most part, you want to stay at the edges. You have the Shaman, which is a healing and support class. 3 of their abilities are dedicated to healing. All the rest are dedicated to support in some way. And then we have the Warden, and the Warden is our team tank. And we always say team tank to make sure people know that your role in this class is to actually actively protect your team. It's not just that you're kind of a weak-hitting but hard-to-kill melee. Your job is to keep your team alive.
Cool. And so to cut back on some of the like overly complex aspects of MMOs, you guys have actually reduced the number of abilities that you get to use? Yeah,
so one of the things that we've noticed is that because MMOs are typically built for kind of extending your play experience through like a long grind and level up process, they give you these rewards in the form of abilities, and by the end of the day you've got 35 to 55 abilities that you have to try to figure out and
all
bind.
Staring you in the face.
Yeah, and a lot of times you look at them and you have something that's like hit, and then you have hit harder, and then you have another one that's hit harder but less often. I mean, it's they lose some of their interest. So what we ended up doing is we looked at what is kind of the minimum number of abilities that you can have a class make use of that give you a full tool set, but at the same time you feel like you've got some variety in what it is that you're doing. So we ended up shrinking it down to 9.
Makes sense. So I guess let's jump to the game.
Yeah, so I'll start off with a Pyromancer.
I love that mask. I think I need one of those.
Yes. Oh, the map's about to change to Forced Ambush. So that's why we're popping in just at a map change.
Yeah, no worries.
There's just a bad connection.
Oh yeah, I can see it. I got it.
No problem. Yeah, hopefully we can edit out the map switch. We don't have a... Okay.
That's why I felt comfortable talking.
Great. All right, so this is Forced Ambush.
Very nice.
This map will support Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, and...
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right, and King of the Hill.
So how big are the teams in each match?
What we want to do is... sorry, I'm going to do this for video because my play camera movement makes it choppy. So we're going to support 8v8 through 24 versus 24.
Wow.
This particular map we've designed with more 8v8 through 12v12. So it's a little more compact than some of the others.
Cool, and it looks like there's sort of 2 levels to the battlefield. You got the treetops.
Yeah, we actually do. Typically when we go with a different vertical levels, we try to go with 3. We have 2 of them that stretch the full map, and then we usually have 1 that can give you a little bit of visibility, but require you to be a little bit closer.
Oh, cool. So like a lookout point.
Yeah, so in this case, the 3rd level is the cave system, which we won't be able to show just because the map is it's only about 70% complete, and that's one of the areas we kind of have off limits right now.
No worries.
But yeah, the map is fully. See if I can hit him with Bola off. Oh, I missed. Yeah, so I mean, as you can see, like the maps themselves. I'm just gonna run by. Oh, you pinned me. All right. Goodbye.
Oh, that's cool. It's like a get out of jail.
Yeah, it's kind of it's flame burst, and if you're pointing down or against something when you use it, like if I want to get to him really quickly, I can go here, jump, and fire, and I can end up on the ground behind him.
Very nice.
So it works a lot like rocket jump. It's just a little bit on a longer cooldown. You can block, like I just did there, to prevent that.
Oh, cool. And that goes for abilities as
Yeah,
well?
so block actually works for anything that you might get hit with. So you can block traps, you can block abilities that they use, any attempt to stun, and I just got blinded. So that's our blind. I'm completely, I can do anything I need to do, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
I love that feature. Like,
And
I've always felt blind should actually blind the player to what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's right, like they call it blind, like it shouldn't be a stun or a disorient, it should actually blind you.
And right now you're doing one-on-one, but this is intended to be, a full team cooperation.
Exactly. So if I were watching, I wouldn't take any balance ideas out of, what you might see out of the classes we'll line up here. The other thing we can do as a pyromancer is if you stand still, another one of their defensive abilities is flame wall. So
Very nice.
if you have melee chasing you down, you can sort of close off an area unless they're willing to take the hit.
Especially in that choke point.
Yeah. And now if you get close, you can turn yourself a bit into a living bomb by making your way up to them, turning on molten armor, and now every hit that they hit you with actually causes you to pulse with damage in the area around you. So
it's good catch-22 for them attacking you.
yeah, and one of the fun things about Bola is if you happen to say that you had a line of 3 enemies that you could actually kind of look at perfectly in line, if you hit the one in front with Bola, it'll drag him into the second one and get both of them Bola'd and drag him into up to a third. So you can pull 3 people back. Oh, he's in camo right now. So you can see him as you move around, but his nameplate's gone.
Okay.
So what he can do out of camo is if I'm standing over here, now that he's in camo, he can use camo again and swap with me. So he moves me to that location. So he can set up traps.
That's tricky.
And he can actually do that with teammates as well. So if you have a teammate in trouble and you want to rescue them, you can camo swap them out of danger.
Oh man, that's really cool. And it looks like you're using mana to cast these abilities?
Yes.
Is that the way it works for every class, or?
Some classes, physical classes, use energy, and magic classes use mana. There's not a lot of functional difference other than like regen rates, and future classes that might somehow affect your mana pool or energy pool will be divided up.
Cool. And is there gear in the game, or is it just everyone starts on the same playing field?
Everyone starts in the same playing field. So while we do have gear, and the gear it's mostly aesthetic.
Cool.
In a later release, we are looking at allowing you to customize your stats, but it'll always be with the same stat budget.
Cool.
So there won't be any power advantage to having one particular set of gear over another. And there isn't any gear that has, like even if we did allow stat allocation, the gear would always be identical in how you could allocate stats.
Cool. So it's not pay to win, which is
not at all. Like in fact, one of the things we talk about is when we have future content expansions, if we release a new class, I'm going to drag his body off just to...
Insult to injury.
Yes, insult to injury, because it does affect his death camera. Yeah, so one of the things we talk about is like DLC content, like adding that. And yes, we'll add classes in the future. The classes won't be more powerful. I didn't block in time. As you can actually see, I now have an arrowhead sticking through me.
Looks like you're poisoned a little bit.
Yeah, I was poisoned. He's hurting. He pinned me. I'll bully him back. Yeah, so we'll release new classes through DLC, but what'll happen is even if you don't purchase the DLC, you'll get that new class with the default faction. You just won't get all the new skins and stuff that come with it. So we'll never divide the player base using DLC, but we will use DLC to help fund continued development, because we're not treating it like just a first-person shooter where you buy it and then we keep swap me onto Trap, where you buy it, bullet him off.
Man, this is a lot of like tricky stuff can happen in this game. It looks like.
Yeah, we like it very kinetic. Like we like people being able to use mobility skills and do things that sort of outsmart their opponent. That way, it's you're not just focused on whatever number you do whenever you click a button. It's, you can set up things for fun. So we're treating it like an MMO in that we'll be releasing new content, new classes, new factions. But at the same time, as far as pricing and that sort of stuff goes, it's a flat purchase. And then if you want to enjoy the new skins, the new cosmetic options for the new classes, it's a small fee over DLC.
Cool. So you guys mentioned that Team Fortress was a good example of the kind of gameplay you want to do with Forge. What other influences?
Certainly, one of the things that we liked was the original Guild Wars, the way that it had a nice variety of abilities you could choose from, but it limited you to a set number. So we definitely like that. I'm going to change classes to the Assassin. And a sigh is let out.
Ooh, fast.
Yeah. So going into Stealth, you actually change to a phased version of the world that looks a little bit different. So Team Fortress 2, other influences, Guild Wars, just because they limit it. One thing we didn't like about Guild Wars, though, is even though that they limited your options to 8, they still had power imbalances in the abilities that kind of led to, if you weren't using this, you weren't using something optimal.
Right, like the legendary quest abilities and whatnot?
Yeah. So, we didn't like that outcome to where it didn't really lead to as much variety as could have been there, after all. We also, of course, took a lot of influence from World of Warcraft, the way that it makes the game more accessible. So instead of focusing on, complexity or depth through complexity, it just focuses on it being fun first and having enough, intent on making the game balanced to open it up to more competitive play. We realized that eventually they kind of had to let go of that when you have as many classes and talents and specs as they do. They at some point it becomes
complicated.
At some point it became unrealistic and things just didn't work out the way they'd hoped. But by keeping it limited, we think that will not be an issue.
So, what's your personal favorite class?
My personal favorite. It kind of depends on who we're playing against at the time. If there's a really good group that's coordinated, then I tend to prefer the Assassin, just because I can peel a little bit. So with Shadow Shift, so this ability that I'm about to do with him drags him into stealth with me. And what's nice is if you've got a group that is all bunched up, by coming in here, he's essentially alone with you. He doesn't have all the help that he's,
and
turtle.
Alone and afraid.
Exactly. So his turtle that he set up with 4 friends isn't helping him for those 5 seconds. So that part I like quite a bit. If it's not me trying to bust up a turtle, then I kind of bounce between Pathfinder and Pyromancer.
Cool. So more the ranged aspects.
Yeah, more so. I think if it got into like really highly competitive play, I would probably be playing more of the support classes.
So speaking of competitive play, are you gearing the game towards the more hardcore players who like to, get in, have everyone be on an even playing field, and then just prove their dominance?
Really not so much. And that's not to say that we're not taking steps that we think will make the game attractive to them. Like we're treating balance as though we were absolutely focusing on it. But our first and most important goal was to make sure that the game was fun. By having it fun to play, something that a lot of people will be taking part in, it makes the competition more meaningful anyway. I mean, if you're the best out of 300 people that are playing, that's great that you're the best, but it's only 300 people. If you have millions of people participating and you're the best out of those millions of people, then that's, there's a lot more value there. So certainly, we're not turning our backs on that aspect, and we balance it with the sort of meticulous attention to detail that, that's required. And we've pulled in some pro gamers to actually assist us with those things. But for the most part, we want it to be fun. We want it to be accessible. We want it to be something that everybody can just get in, play for 15 minutes or an hour, and enjoy themselves.
Awesome.
So this, I'm really bad at wall jumping with the Pathfinder for some reason.
That looks pretty tricky.
Yeah, with the Pathfinder it's harder because the bow actually, it's harder inside that little space. I can get up there with the Assassin though. I'll go out. So this is the interior temple. So this is one of the more traditional sort of FPS built maps. You've seen a lot of these. It's like one fortress facing another fortress with an open area, a bridge, and a valley.
Yes, a classic design.
Exactly, yeah. You're talking straight up kind of two-fort design.
Cool, you even got the bridge.
Mm-hmm. Got the bridge. We did a little bit, differently because we need a little more space, knowing that there are going to be people crowded together more often than you typically see. Blocked your bola.
And I imagine this is an awesome map for Capture the Flag.
Oh yeah. This and actually Forest Ambush both are quite a lot of fun. Oh man, you set me on fire. That's not right.
All right. The next kill will determine all the.
I stole your rocket jump.
Man, that's tricky. Oof, very nice.
Yeah, it's not really fair that I've got to play it like every day for months. And, yeah, it's quite a bit of fun to do Capture the Flag, which, speaking of, we've done it a little bit differently because what we didn't want to have happen are these like large mobs to form together and just run the flag bypassing each other. So what we've done is the map designers can take and actually place strategically around the map different towers that one at a time are activated randomly while you're playing CTR. If your team sways the tower to their side a little bit, then every time you cap, you get 2 points. If you get the tower completely captured to your side, so if the bar goes completely to your end, every cap you make is worth 3 points. So our goal is, instead of having these 3-cap CTFs to where every capture feels like a grind, we're going for higher scoring CTF games to where you're shooting for like 10 to 15.
You have like different squads and stuff. So you mentioned that there's a Kickstarter for Forge.
Yes, so what we're doing is we've decided to start the pre-order process on Kickstarter itself. And, the reasons are many. One, obviously getting Steam approval, we wanted to wait until the game was a little bit further along before we went through that process. And two, it allows us to set up reward tiers that you normally, there's no way you could put up like 12 different products on Steam and let people decide which one they want. So it gives us the option to let people decide if they want to have, like a 5-pack for the family, which we also then include some signed artwork, that sort of thing. The other thing it does is, because of the cost differences between being on a typical retail outlet versus being on Kickstarter, we're able to offer it at a price that we'll just never be able to offer it at again. So pre-ordering on Kickstarter right now is $15. You get a copy of the game and a founder's title. At $30, we actually will get you into the closed beta process that otherwise is closed off due to us being completely full right now.
Get ahead of the crowd.
Yeah, get ahead of the crowd. And obviously there are tiers that go all the way up. Like we've signed partnerships with like Origin PC and audio headwear from Astro Gaming, that some of the tiers actually give you headsets and gaming computers.
Cool. So that's a quick look at Forge. If you want to know more about it, go to gamesradar.com. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.